Hello, everyone. Thank you very
Hi.
much for joining us again. We're really glad that you're able to be with us for this week's Sunday school lesson. And this week, we're going to carry on with that theme that we've been working on for the last several weeks, that theme of Epiphany. Now, Epiphany is a strange word. We've said this before. It's not a word that we use a lot in our everyday language, but it's a word that you may remember. It means revealing or showing forth. In fact, sometimes we use the word manifestation. So it all has to do with stories that reveal to us, show something to us of who Jesus was. And so you may remember a few weeks ago we started out with the story of the wise men, right? The three gifts that the wise men brought were gifts that said something about who they thought Jesus was. You know, gold for the king, and frankincense or incense for God, and the myrrh for someone who was going to die. And so that tells us that Jesus is our King, but he's also God, but he also came to be our Savior, to die on the cross and to rise again. So the gifts that they gave to Jesus tell us something about who Jesus is. And you may remember that we also had a story about Jesus' baptism by John in the Jordan, and how the dove descended on Jesus, that God and the Holy Spirit descended on Jesus to be with him for his work and his ministry, but also the voice of the Father. You are my beloved Son. So a voice that reminded Jesus that he was God's son, and reminds us that Jesus is God's son as well. And last week we had a story about Jesus turning water into wine at a wedding feast. So that showed the power that Jesus has as God, right? As God and man, God and human at the very same time. So we're going to pick up on that theme this week and look at another story that tells us something about who Jesus is. But to start that out, I want to show you guys something. Let's see how this works. What do you think? Oh, what do you think? Is that a nice bright light? Does that sort of shine in your eyes? Shines in my eyes. I even have another one here as well, because this week's story is actually, that's even brighter, isn't it? It actually, if I put it out there, my goodness, it's awfully bright. So this is going to be a story about light. But before we actually talk about the story, we're going to play a game. In fact, I'm looking forward to the game because it's a game that involves candy. I don't know if you guys like candy. I like candy. So this game involves candy. Now I'm going to put the camera down so you guys can see that. There's the candy.
There's the candy. And
And
my job is to hide it under one of these three cups while Father Kevin closes his eyes.
I'm
Close
not.
your eyes,
I'm
cover
not.
your
I'm
eyes.
not supposed to cheat. So I have my eyes closed. I have my eyes closed. No, I'm cheating. Okay. Okay. Very good. I'll
Okay.
turn my back.
So I'm going to pick one of these cups and I'm going to put the candy underneath of it. Okay? Did everyone see where I put it? All right. Now you can turn around and look
Okay.
because it's hidden.
Okay. It's been hidden under one of those three cups, and my job is
To find the candy.
so
But
okay.
you have a 1 in 3
You
chance.
mean I'm only allowed to lift one of those three?
You're only allowed to lift one of them. But I'm going to let you lift one just as a little bonus,
You mean
as extra before, like you can check under one.
you mean I can get a peek
You can get a peek.
if the candy's under the one I
You can take a glimpse under one of them.
okay.
And if the candy's there, you won already. If the candy's not there, then you get a 50-50 chance of winning.
That's not bad, is it? Okay.
Mm.
So I get to have a peek under one of these three. Can you guys tell me? No, you probably can't tell me. Okay. I'm going to peek under this one. Oh, that was excellent.
Candy is yours.
Candy is mine. I'll save that for later. Okay. So this is a story about light, and it's about peeking at the same time, getting a peek, getting a glimpse. And the story goes like this. I'm going to read the story and maybe spend a few minutes talking about the story as well. The material that we send out with our email will give you some of the links, some of the story that you'll be able to read that story yourself. And it goes like this. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. So that's the first part of the story. So Jesus goes up with his friend Peter and James and John, who are brothers, and he goes up on this mountain, and his appearance changes, and his face becomes bright as the sun, just really, really bright, almost so bright it's hard to look at, and his clothes become really, really white as well. I don't know if you've ever seen something called bleach. Something we don't play with, of course, but bleach, if you ever see bleach being used, it can make clothes that have gotten dirty looking, make them look absolutely white. So Jesus appeared to be bright as light and his clothes as white as they could possibly be, not because they used bleach, but actually because his own nature was shining out from the inside to the outside. The story goes like this. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you and one for Moses and one for Elijah. Now, that part of the story may not make a lot of sense, but Moses and Elijah were 2 of God's people, God's servants who lived hundreds of years before the time of Jesus. And they appeared on the mountain with Jesus, speaking with Jesus. And Moses and Elijah, in a way, remind us that Jesus came to fulfill, to answer all the promises that God had ever made in the Bible, in the Holy Scriptures. The promises that we heard through Moses or through Elijah, 2 of God's servants in the Old Testament. So they were sort of saying, this is Jesus. This is God's promise fulfilled. And the story goes like this. He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. Now, I don't know what you would think if you suddenly heard this loud voice coming out of the sky, almost like over a loudspeaker, right? But even louder and deeper, this is my beloved Son. And you may remember that sounds an awful lot like what the voice from the sky, the voice of God the Father, said when Jesus was baptized, except then the voice said, You are my beloved Son, because the voice was speaking to Jesus. This time the voice was speaking to Peter and James and John, and maybe to us as well. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. The story goes on. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. So that's a story that speaks about who Jesus is. That we know that Jesus is human, like you and like me. He had a mother named Mary. He was born as all babies are born. So we know Jesus is human. But we also realize from this story that Jesus is more than just human, that he's both human and God at the same time. And that's what this story reminds us, because the Bible tells us that God is light. And we see that light shining from Jesus, shining in his face, shining from his clothes. And the disciples on the mountain got a small peek, a glimpse at who Jesus really is. They went down from the mountain and had to go back because his appearance returned to normal after that. But it was a reminder to them that Jesus was more than just who they thought he was, that he was also God himself. We have a little bit of a craft to work with here. So I've got the sheet of paper. I guess I'll hand that to you.
Should I cut them?
Oh, you go right ahead. Yep.
So I'm just going to cut them so that we each get a part of it.
I have a candy to eat while she's doing this.
Of course, is in the links that were sent out, so you'll be able to print one off and do it too.
That's nice candy.
You won the game.
I won the game.
So there you go. Do you want to show them?
No, you should talk, actually. I got a mouthful of candy.
Okay. So this is a picture of what happened on the mountain with Jesus as the light and whatnot. At the top it says, This is my Son whom I love, and listen to him. So what you can do is you can color it. We'll just do a little bit of quick coloring.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to grab it here. Just going to do a little bit of quick coloring around it.
Wait, I'll do this. There we go.
So we'll just color a little bit. You can do a better job because you'll have more time to work on it. And then if you look closely, you can see that this inside center part of Jesus's cloak has a thicker black line around it. So we're going to use this. We used it before. It's sharp. It's an X-Acto knife for crafting. You can use it, even a kitchen, like a paring knife you could use too, but make sure you have an adult with you while you're doing it.
And you can actually use scissors too,
And you
but
could
you might
use
use a knife
scissors
like this just to get a start.
to get a start, exactly. So what you're going to do is where the line is dark in Jesus's cloak, you're going to cut along that. I have a cutting board down so I don't scratch the table or cut into the wood of the table or whatever surface you're working on. It's pretty simple because they're pretty straight lines. And across the bottom. And that just pops right out. So now I have I have a hole right there, through there. So what I have next is wax paper. So I'm going to take a piece of wax paper, tear it off the thing, and I'm going to cut a piece to fit the back of my paper. Trim this up a little bit. Doesn't have to be all neat edges or anything. And tape. You brought the tape up, so I'll get you to do the taping. So put that on the back and then just tape it to the back. You've done a nice job coloring yours.
Thanks.
Around the back. And then you can see it's transparent. You can see through it. So.
Look at that. Or, let's try this.
Or. See, you can see the light shining.
See how it shines through? Well, I guess it sort of shines through the whole paper. That one is. But the smaller one would work, I think.
And I also have with me a tea light. This one flashes different colors or is different colors. But you can set that behind it, and then you can actually bring this around.
Well, actually, let's just tape it like this as a round piece.
Tape it as a round piece.
Hold it there. You probably don't want to tape your fingers too, do you?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you just put that. And the light comes
cool.
through it.
Look, see how the light shines right through
that one has different colors. It's going to change from red to blue and green into a whitey color. This one is just a solid color. It stays the same.
And you can see it. And you can see that in the center there.
In the center.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
So it's a kind of a cool craft to work with, to remind us of what the Transfiguration tells us about Jesus. So it's another story that reminds us that Jesus is both human, like us, but he's also God at the same time. Because he's human and God at the same time, he understands us. He knows all the struggles that we struggle with, and he knows the joys that we have as well. But he's also God, so he actually can offer us healing and hope as well. And I think the secret to the Transfiguration story is similar to the secret that we heard last week with the wedding feast in Cana, right? Jesus turning water into wine. Because you may remember at that feast, we said last week that Jesus didn't turn the water into wine. He never touched the water. He spoke to the servants, told the servants to fill those jars up to the very, very top with water, and then he told them to take some out and take it to the person in charge of the feast. And because they listened to Jesus and did what Jesus told them to do, this amazing miracle took place. Water was turned into wine, and people weren't embarrassed. It was a great event and a great party, whereas it would have been a big disappointment if they'd run out of wine. And in a way, that's a similar story that we hear this week, because the voice of the Father from the sky says, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." So it reminds us again that if we really want our lives to be filled with light and with joy and with brightness, the real secret is to listen to the voice of Jesus and to do our very, very best to follow the voice of Jesus as well. So we invite you to work with this simple craft, as well as to work through some of the other sheets and material that we're going to send to you folks as well. And look forward to having a chat with you next week as we continue through this series of Epiphany stories. So we hope you have a really great week. I hope you have fun working with this craft and the other material. I had fun because I got a really tasty candy and I won the game. I don't win the games very often, but I won the game this time. And so we will see you folks next time. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.